I'm always surprised when it feels like the course has just begun and then we're in the final week. So here we go. We have just a few things to go over tonight. First of all, just a few announcements. Week 4, this is it. Have all assignments submitted by Sunday, July 10 at midnight. And that is this Sunday. My goodness. In this class, is there a time limit? There is, Patty. I believe it is 2 hours. I think I have a 2-hour time limit on it. And you're also allowed 2 attempts. So, you know, with my exams and my quizzes, I don't want them to be a way that you're punished. I want it to be something that you learn from. So I think giving more than one shot gives you the chance to redo, to go over the questions a second time, and to make a better score. So I use exams as a way of teaching as well. So our final exam is, of course, open book, open note. Sometimes we do final exams in the ECE courses. Sometimes we do final projects. I like to do a little bit of both because in a way, when you have a final exam, you're not having to build a project each week or work on a PowerPoint. You're mainly focusing on the information that we've covered. So that's what I want you to do in this course. Also, if you haven't posted to the discussion boards yet, please do that ASAP. Remember, I will always give you a few points for getting it in within the week that it's due. So please do that. And then we will, of course, breathe and repeat, right? Okay, well, fantastic, Patty. I'm glad you like that. Awesome. So we will finish up our course, get everything turned in, and then on Monday is where we take our big breath and we get ready for the next course. We'll be coming up with ECE 101. So I hope you enjoy that one as well. So let's look tonight at when and where to seek help, and we've been talking about this with some of our assignments this week. So to start us off, I'd like for you to think about either being, there you go, talk about being in a classroom and some of the disabilities you might encounter. We might have mental disabilities, physical, let me have it, that was in the way, physical, definitely, autism, and they like to call it now ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. Speech disorders, exactly. There's another one. What else might you encounter? Of course, with our physical disabilities, that's going to include a lot of different ones. You might have learning disabilities, maybe we could get specifically into, right, ADHD, we might get into ADD, yep. Various hearing issues, you might have students with hearing aids that you get to sort of help them take care of this as well. You might have minor sight disabilities as well. Oh, disruptive mood disorder. That's a good one, Kyle. I was actually in a behaviors disorders classroom at one point as a substitute, and boy, what an eye-opening experience. Hey, that's a good one, Patty. And, you know, especially in the lower grades, you do sometimes have some separation anxiety, definitely with the kindergartners and pre-K. You may have delays, right? So maybe they're just a little bit behind, as we say, right? or they may be several years behind. We could have a whole spectrum of disabilities. And so what I really want you guys to stop and just think about is not every child is perfect in your classroom. We almost all have some type of maybe a delay or a disability. It may be very mild, it may be very extreme, and that you're going to have these children that you work with. And so you have to be prepared, ready for it, or at least know where to get the information to get a little help, right? So I like this quote, if they can't learn the way we teach the way they learn. And that's what we really want to optimally do in an ECE classroom, is customize it to each learner. Not everyone is verbal, not everyone is auditory, not everyone is a visual learner. So there's lots of different ways, and we need to touch on those different ways. Exactly. That's how you were taught to teach adults. Exactly, Kyle. That you need to touch on some of those different learning styles to reach them better. Same thing goes with our little kiddos as well. Don't be scared to ask their parents for help and advice for the kids. Yes, exactly, Tina. That's very good. Exactly, because they know them so much more than we do, right? They know the tricks, they know the tips, and sometimes you need to reach out for that help. So what we see with our children at risk is that we sometimes have there's a greater awareness of developmental problems and impact on their learning. And we say children at risk, this may be a child that was born a little early, or maybe encountered some problems during birth, maybe had a rough time in the family as a child, maybe lives in poverty. There's so many different ways that a child can be termed at risk. Oh, you had an OCD child, Patty. Was it your own child or a child in the classroom? No. Oh, you coached her. Gotcha. So I'm sure that was a learning experience for you, right? That you had to learn how to work with her disability. She pulled up her socks and washed her hands repeatedly. Oh, gotcha. Exactly. Oh, wow, Patty, that's amazing. So you recognized that, but her parents hadn't realized it yet, huh? That's kind of a unique place that teachers or coaches or anybody interacting with children are placed sometimes, and that sometimes we can see things that maybe they don't because we're looking at it from the outside. And sure, oh, I can definitely say it was, see how it might be a bit scary to discuss. Sure, and it could have been hereditary as well. So it maybe causes the parents to look at their own behaviors too, or other family members. So many different things that could come up there. Yeah, that's a very, very good example though. The public has become more understanding and supportive of children with disabilities. We see more services offered. Have any of you guys seen the playgrounds that are designed for children with disabilities? Those of you that have been in some of my past classes have probably seen some of the examples that I've put up. I think it's awesome too, Tina. I love the swings that wheelchairs are able to roll onto and lock into, so that they can, you know, have that experience too. There's also playgrounds that focus on keeping things on the ground at a lower level to reach more children. So there's a huge innovation in playgrounds right now to be a little more inclusive, smooth pathways, sometimes less climbing or different climbing. Also sounds that we can incorporate into the playground as well. So we're really working towards that. Professionals in connected fields recognize the importance of early identification and early intervention, and that's where you guys come in at this young age, because we may be dealing with in ECE, children anywhere from birth up to about 8 years old. And this is a really critical intervention time. Some of the supportive legislation that we currently have, PL 88542 in 1965, established Head Start, and what a remarkable thing that has been. Early and periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment program, EPSDT, began in 1967, just a few years before I was born. And it was decided to locate and evaluate children that were at risk and their families so that we could again intervene early and get the ball rolling. Hi, Opal. So other supportive legislation that we've seen, these are things that you may not think about that just happens. WIC began in 1972 to help provide food vouchers, nutrition education, and medical supervision for women, infants, and children. Fantastic, to really help the future of our country be a little healthier from early on. PL 94-142 in 1975 mandates early intervention identification services for children 3 to 5 years. And before then, many children weren't identified as needing extra services or having disabilities until they reached grade school age, or maybe even several years into grade school. So we bumped it forward. They amended and renamed it as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and you'll see that abbreviated as IDEA in many of the ECE books. And this was in 1990, not so far ago, 1990. Also, Education of the Handicapped Act was in 1986, extending services to children birth to 3. So that's when we closed the gap, where we were able to start reaching children from basically the minute they're born. Amazing. The ADA in 1990 guarantees children the right to full inclusion in the classroom and protects against discrimination. Now, we do still see some separate classrooms, but in 1990 they really started to push the idea of not keeping, say, a child that has a hearing disability, not keeping them in a separate classroom, but including them with their peers and with their regular teachers and providing a little extra help so that they're not excluded. And one of the last ones, I believe, is in 2002, No Child Left Behind. And I know you guys are going to have some thoughts, ideas on this one. It was basically to improve educational opportunities and academic success rates for children. It held schools a little more accountable, gave parents more choice. Unfortunately, something that came along with this was also a lot of testing, right? You've probably seen this in your local school districts. And I think what we're seeing right now is hopefully a little bit of turnaround there, where in the coming school years, they're going to try to scale down on the number of tests our children take. So exactly, Kyle, plenty of testing, plenty. And what we don't necessarily want are these high stakes tests where we have young children very stressed out. We do want to identify where a problem might potentially be, and we do want to keep track of our children, but this isn't something that necessarily has to be done every year. So I think we'll find a little bit of common ground there. So some of the challenges that we run into with developmental problems. The delays may be present in only one domain. So, you know, as you brought out earlier, Patty, your child with OCD that you were coaching, maybe this was the only area where this was showing up. So maybe she may have done just great in school, or It was, exactly. So she, you know, maybe she's doing just fine in all other areas, and so it sort of went unnoticed. There's a wide range of variation existing within developmental areas. I know we talk a lot about how every child develops at their own pace. She's an executive in Japan now. Oh, what a great story, Maddie. Awesome. That's great. You may also have family beliefs, practices, cultural differences that sort of keep them from addressing the potential problem. Children may learn to compensate for their deficiencies. I have a good friend who has a child that was diagnosed as dyslexic a few years ago, and he had developed so many amazing coping mechanisms at a young age. It was really really surprising, all the lengths that he had gone to sort of cover it up and hide it, because he didn't want to feel different. And you know, that's the main thing with our children, is they want to feel accepted. They don't want to feel singled out lots of times. So that can delay you getting them a little help, maybe. Some developmental problems will also come and go, may present themselves at later dates, or they may basically grow out of them as well. But then you're going to look back and go, wow, maybe that was the problem. We didn't even realize it was there. Why families might delay seeking help. They're unsure if it's really a problem. They don't really want to know. You know, maybe don't really want to address the issue. What was it, Tina? Your little girl was going through all the testing. Now she's 5 and considered to be delayed to 3 years old. Oh my goodness, Tina. Yeah, exactly. But you know that the good news is that you know now, and you can really focus on, and the school can focus on getting her caught back up. And you know what? Some of them can do it amazingly fast. You never know. So try to stay positive on that. And I know it seems huge. You're like 2 years, but you know, when they're that little, that can sometimes be a smaller difference than we realize. So I hope that everything goes well there, Tina. And I'm glad you took the step to get her tested as well. Good, good. Fantastic. Exactly. She needs a little extra help. You got it. Sometimes parents will think, exactly, Patty, there you go. We got to support each other. Sometimes parents believe that a child might outgrow the problem and just try to sort of ignore it. They're uncertain where to go for help or if they can afford it. And from this week, guys, you had an assignment where you had to find resources for families in your community. So this is what you are. You're going to be a great resource. If you identify a child as having a potential problem, one of the first things you should do is also find a potential resource or solution. So we want you to be ready for that. So you're coming up with your list of services in your community. Maybe it's a place where testing can be done. Maybe it's a place for families that can get food, where they can get clothing, where they can seek emergency shelter. There's lots of different services for families out there. So that's what you should be doing with your assignment this week. I had quite a few emails on that, so I wanted to help kind of clarify that. They are confused about the information they receive. Maybe they don't really understand what's going on. And they find it difficult to know what's best for the child, because we really don't know 100% what to do as a parent. I wish we had a book that did that for us, but we don't. All we can do is learn as we go along sometimes. Identifying developmental problems. We begin by observing. Basically, I want you to picture yourself in, let's say, a kindergarten classroom, you are the teacher assistant, and you're able to sometimes sit back and watch the children and observe what's going on. And again, since you're outside of the system, you might notice some developmental potential issues. So through observations, we can then maybe suggest some testing. We can include the input from the child's family. Of course, remember, we're a team. We can use the information gathered from these multiple sources, from all of these resources, to come up with what might be going on and form a plan as far as what we're going to do, and hopefully help reduce a little bias we might have as well, not just as teachers, but also as parents in the classroom. We sometimes have just a little bit of that and don't even realize it. So once we've formulated what to do, we involve the parents actively, as we've discussed all through this course. Focus on what is best for the child. Number one, take advantage of multidisciplinary expertise. If you're in a public school, if you're in a Head Start, you have teachers with lots of different backgrounds and different subject areas. They've had different experiences, and that's one of the great things about teaching on a team, is helping each other out and helping solve these problems. Again, as a team, reduce bias, improve some creative problem solving, and it's always ongoing. So with our creative problem solving, I always say 2 heads are better than 1. You know, you can think about a problem that you're having even in life, and you can worry it to death, and sometimes you can bounce that problem off someone else and they will have the perfect solution. So teaching as in life, right? Sometimes we need a fresh perspective. Let me see where we're at here. We actually have just a few more slides to go, guys. I'm sorry, this has mainly been a lecture type night. I want you to know I'm recognizing you are there. It's fine. Okay. With referrals, this is what we may have to do based on the child's evaluation findings. In a classroom, we have simple tests that we can do. We might have a counselor that can come into the classroom and do additional testing as well. We consider the family's needs, strengths, and resources. What do they have? What can we help them out with? And you know, what I see, especially in some of the smaller towns, is a community will sometimes really come together to help a child. So we have this beautiful little girl in Fairland, and I think she's in 2nd grade this year. She's wheelchair bound, and the community has come together to raise some money. They got a special bike for her where her feet go on the pedals, but she moves the pedals with her hands. So you should have seen this little child light up when she got to ride a bike for the first time. It was really amazing. And they also got a special, it's like a wheelchair that helps her stand up so that she can be on the playground in a standing position and able to make eye contact with her peers. And that has made a world of difference for her. So sometimes we have to reach out and go, okay, what can we do? Identify appropriate educational programs and services, so what's available in your community, or what can I drive a short distance to get to too. And include an ongoing review of the child's placement and progress. So once a child is identified and we get together as a team, maybe we have a referral, then we develop this plan to keep this going until that child either graduates from high school or until they potentially overcome this disability, or being behind a little, maybe we get them caught back up. So that's our ultimate goal, is to help the child. I like this quote, strength lies in differences, not in similarities. And that's by Stephen Covey. If you've ever had a chance to read any of Stephen Covey's books, you understand that he makes some very wise quotes. He's a great author. So lastly, in the end, are there any questions? Do you feel like we sort of covered the week's NOPERS? We covered the week's activities. You've got several assignments, several discussion boards. You have a final exam to take before Sunday at midnight. Now, I want to point out, guys, if you want to make a good grade in any course, don't treat any assignment as optional. Do them all, turn them all in, do them well. You're going to make an A or a B. That's what you want to shoot for. So I don't want you to think, oh, I'm doing okay, I'm going to blow off this final exam, because that's 100 points. That could bring you down 1 or 2 letter grades. Okay, be sure and do that. And if you guys don't have any more questions, you can skedaddle on for the night, and we'll finish out week 4. 4 is the only way to go. Fantastic, guys. Have a good night.